Okay, we're live. So if this is the second of these information sessions that we've held using StreamYard. StreamYard is a program that allows us to simulcast on YouTube and on Facebook. So we have the district Facebook page that is currently up and running with our live video of this question and answer session. We also, if you go to the other place you can go to is the YouTube page for me, Zach McLaughlin. So look for me, and there's some videos connected with the school. There'll be the live stream will also be available there. This is recorded for both of those locations. So when we're done, ultimately what we'll end up with is we'll have a recording of this as well. And the great thing about this platform is it allows us to have a dialogue with you in a variety of different settings. So I will, before we get into a couple quick introductory videos about the budget, what I'm going to have you do, have each of the people here do is introduce themselves to you and who they are and what their connection is with the school district. And I will start with me. Last time I think I forgot to introduce me, which I do all the time. My name is Zach McLaughlin, and I am the superintendent of schools here in Springfield. And the next on my screen is Troy. Troy, why don't you go ahead?
I'm Troy Palmer. I'm the current school board chair.
Great. And Rick?
Good evening. I'm Rick Pembroke. I'm the chief financial officer for the school district.
And how about go Steve?
I'm Steve Carafa, school board member and clerk.
All right. And Mike Griffin's with us, but he looks like he's muted at the moment. So maybe what I'll do is I'll start in a minute. I'm going to start a couple of introductory, quick 5 minutes worth of two quick introductory videos to explain what's on the ballot, where the actual questions connected with the school district, and then a little bit about how the difference between taxation between school budgets and town budgets, which is a very common misconception amongst voters. So we want to clear those things up. So I'll run those two, and maybe by the time we come back, we'll have an opportunity for Mike to join us, and we can talk a little bit more about how you can ask us some questions. So I'll go ahead and run the first of those two. For those of you who were with us the other night, you're gonna recognize at least the first one because it's one that we've had up and on our.
Hi, and thanks for checking out this video on the upcoming Springfield School District budget vote. On March 2nd, Springfield citizens will vote on a variety of budget requests from different organizations around town. The school district has 4 money items and 1 procedural vote on the ballot. The first school item on the ballot is a unique one in that they are only due to coronavirus. Article 7 is usually just a procedural floor vote. It passes every year and is one of the only items that is voted on at the public information night. This year, there is no in-person meeting due to COVID-19, so it's been added to the ballot. It allows the district to short-term borrow when tax revenue payments may not yet have come in. The next two are exactly what they were last year. Do you approve giving the elected town moderator $50 for running necessary school budget meetings? And then, do you approve giving every school board member $500 to help cover their expenses? Both of these numbers are already included in the overall school budget. Then come the big ones. In Article 10, you'll vote on a $32.4 million budget to run the schools next year. This budget will result in an anticipated 3.68 cent tax cut for Springfielders who pay the school property tax. Also, it's important to remember that based on the state funding formula, Springfield taxpayers only contribute between 1/3 and 1/4 of that $32.4 million. Finally, in Article 11, the district asks voters to approve the creation of a tax stabilization fund and permission to move $400,000 worth of surplus from last year's school budget into that fund. The purpose of the fund will be to help limit the fluctuations of tax rates over the next few budget cycles. Thanks for taking 2 minutes to educate yourself on the upcoming school budget vote. We hope to do more videos in the coming days. Remember, there is an online information session the night of Monday, March 1st. The actual vote is on Tuesday, March 2nd, but you can request your absentee ballot right away by reaching out to the town clerk's office at 802-885 2104, or by filling out an absentee ballot request from the town's website. Hi, and
Sorry. All right. And then the second of these is a newer one that we put together, but is reminiscent of something we developed last year to try to help people understand the difference between school taxing and municipal taxation. So here we go.
Hi. Thanks for taking a few minutes to try to understand how the school budget and the non-school budget questions are very different from one another. It's a crucial thing to recognize as you make decisions about value. A key thing to remember about voting on town meeting day is what you're actually voting on. On the ballot, you're asked whether or not you give the town and the schools permission to spend certain amounts of money. While there are 26 different articles in this year's ballot, you are really deciding on money to be spent by the town government and money to be spent by the school district. On the school side, there are 4 items, and on the town side, it includes close to 20. Town spending includes items like police and paving, but also a bunch of votes to give money to community organizations like the Community Band and Meals on Wheels. If you add up all the spending requests, you would find that the town and community organizations are asking to spend about $13.8 million, and the schools are asking to spend $32.4 million. When some voters look at these totals, the reaction is not surprising. People, especially those straining under the pinch of a high tax burden, feel the request is ridiculous. What is important to understand is that the permission to spend doesn't impact how you are taxed in the same way. When the town side of the ballot asks to spend $13.8 million, it is asking to raise that $13.8 million from Springfield taxpayers. When the school asks to spend $32.4 million, it is only asking to raise $7.6 million combined from businesses and homeowners in Springfield. And if you're only looking at how much gets raised from homeowners in town, it's $3.7 million. Of course, that leads to some questions. How is that possible? Well, Vermont schools are funded through a state fund. Our local taxpayers contribute to that fund, but the fund is designed to make sure that students in towns with less property wealth can still get a good education. That leads to different deals for different towns. Springfield has one of the best deals in the state. So here's how it plays out. When you spend money on the town side, for every dollar you raise in taxes, you should get $1 back in services. But on the school side, for every $1.20 we send to the state fund, we get about $10 to spend on the education of the children in our community. Again, this is one of the best deals in the state of Vermont. When you look at ballot items, it helps to think about the actual cost of each spending decision. So after the first page of the ballot, which has candidates for all the open positions, then we get into the money questions. Most of these questions are on town spending. So let's label those. We'll skip the school questions for now. Okay, now let's label the percentage of each of these items paid for by Springfield taxpayers. All of these town items are paid 100% by Springfield. All right, let's jump back to the school questions. On these, we're only asking for new spending on 3 items. One question is just to put aside money to help lower taxes for the next couple of years. On the other 3, Springfield as a whole pays about 24% of the bill, and Springfield homeowners pay approximately 12% of the bill. Of course, everyone still needs to make value judgments about the appropriate amount of spending, but it's essential to remember that the school's spending happens at a deeply discounted rate. So we hope this helps you understand the difference between the 2 different types of budgets that you'll be voting on. We also hope that you'll vote by absentee or in person on March 2nd. Thanks.
Zach, you're muted.
Zach, you muted.
Sorry about that. All right, so I'm going to add Mike to the stream. I don't know if we quite get Mike all the way there yet. That new video that is around the taxation stuff, we will post to our Facebook page right after this, and we'll have also available through the YouTube channel I mentioned before. So I just want to, before I open up, give a couple of broad questions for some of the people who are here about the budget. I did want to mention again the way in which you can send us some questions. You can, on the Facebook page, you see the streaming video of us right now. Right beneath that, there's the comment section, just like you'd comment on somebody's post. And you can post comments in there that then we can pull up and respond to here as part of the live feed for the show. Also, if you're on the YouTube channel, for my YouTube channel, there off to the right, you'll see a place where there's a comment box where you can also send us messages through that as well. So those are the ways to send us some questions that we can respond to here live. So before we do that, though, I figured that it makes sense to kind of go round robin here and see if people want to talk a little bit about what they felt was something important for the voters to know, one important thing for the voters to know about this particular budget. And I don't know if anybody in particular wants to start.
Also, I can start.
But you're unmuted, Troy.
Nobody's jumping up to it. I'll go for it. So I think the best thing to talk about is the town or the stabilization article of $400,000. So this year we're seeing a decrease in our tax rate of 3.68 cents. The stabilization is there so that next year we don't see an increase of 5 cents. So really what the board and the district is trying to do is to use that reserve we're setting aside to make sure in future years to come that we don't see wild swings in our property taxes. So it's not that we're hoarding money. It's really to help the community for us all to budget our money as a family or unit or as an individual properly, so we don't the following year have wild swings in our taxes to the town. So I think that is important for everybody to understand where that's coming from.
And I'll just add to that, the one other thing too that I think some people don't know or don't realize is that there's $400,000 of surplus from this last operating year that we're putting into the stabilization fund, but the vast majority of the surplus is going into paying down the tax rate this year, much more than the $400,000 that is going into the stabilization fund. So it's something for people to know too. It wasn't like we kept all the surplus was kept for the purposes of paying down tax rates in the future. The most of it went into paying down tax rates this year and helping provide that 3.5 cent tax cut. So, Mike, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that you may or may not be aware from the previous meetings, but a lot of work did go in with the budget committee and the board and people around the district and community looking at the budget, going through it with a fine-tooth comb and finding ways that money could be spent either in a different way or not spent, if it could be something that was a savings in order to deliver a reasonable budget to ask of the taxpayers, knowing where we are today in regards to COVID and all the financial strains that everybody's seeing. So please know that a lot of work was put into this to try to deliver you this budget that you're seeing, and I definitely support the budget.
Steve, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback on what Mike just said. I think that of all the years I've been on the board now, I think this year was the hardest because of everything that was happening. But everybody did a good job in the budget this year, from administration down. We've tried to get everything level funded or less. Sometimes it's hard, especially unexpected expenses we're having. But I too agree that this was really well done, and I support this budget 100%.
Great. Rick, anything you think is good for people to think about?
Well, I just want to piggyback on the stabilization reserve again. I've heard a couple of comments, questions. Well, how come I don't, give it all back to the taxpayers? And as you said earlier, Zach, we're giving the majority of the surplus back to buy down that tax rate. But in reality, if you look at it, and it's in our frequently asked questions that are on our website, because somebody did ask that question, and I laid out in there some of the math, and it is a complicated process. The state funding formula is not simple math, but it is very beneficial to Springfield. And if we were to apply that $400,000 back as revenue and reduce the taxes further, Springfield only realizes about 90,000 of that 400. 310 of that goes to the state, goes back to the ed fund, because we get so much from the ed fund. When we have a surplus and have to return it, the majority of that goes back to the ed fund. So we Springfield isn't able to keep it all. So I wanted to make sure that everybody, agree or understands that, a lot of people say, well, that's Springfield's money. Springfield paid for it. Well, fortunately, no, you didn't. And unfortunately, no, you didn't. You've got, when it's revenue coming in, it's a good thing. When it's, when it's a surplus that we got to pay back, the majority of that's going to go back, because that's where the majority of the revenue came from.
It's a good it was a good, what you just referenced was the frequently asked question page that we have, which I had in my notes that I wanted to make sure I showed people the website and where they can get a bunch of additional information and resources and guides about what we're doing in the budget. So I'm going to go over to that just for a second, just to quickly, not to spend a lot of time there, but just to help show people what's available to them. But I did also want to, for people who are new to StreamYard, let them know that if you do look down in the comments on Facebook, if you're there, then you're going to see John Perry, who left a message. And what I can do with that message is pull it up and show it. In this case, it's not a question, but a comment. I love this. This is a great way to show this. I think it was back when we were doing the video about the tax rates. So
I thought he was a great way to show his fish.
That is also true. It's a heck of a fish. So we'll come back in a minute. So I mean, it's good. Mr. Perry helped us kind of break the ice here. Well, in more ways than one. Now I'm talking ice breaking joke. But he helped us break the ice on people making comments. And this is what we can do. We can respond to your questions. So I'm going to pull this back down for Mr. Perry. I'm going to quickly show you on the website what is available, some of the resources that are available to you that we keep adding to. And then I'll come back to us as a group. So here is our district webpage. Let's see. Give me just a second. So where you go on our district webpage to look at the materials that are available for budget information is you go to the central office tab, you go down to budget information, and then under budget information, we've got a bunch of different things that are available for folks. The first is a frequently asked question page. So we have a email address here, budgetquestion@ssdvt.org, that we had put out on our Facebook page, and we've tried to communicate out to people. I think I sent it out to parents as a email. And if you send questions to that, if you don't do it tonight and you're looking at this as a recording and you have questions about the budget, send it there. Because what we're trying to do is build a set of responses to the common questions that we're getting from people, and then we're posting them on our website. And then in addition to that, you also have any of these budget videos that we're creating. The video of the last session that we did that was similar to this, that's available. Our annual school report is available for download and reading, talking about different programs and things that are happening in the district. And then in addition to that, we also have a whole bunch of the different versions of the budget information that was being shared during our budget process. So there's a lot there for people in a lot of different ways for you to go as deep as you want to go into our current budget situation. All right, let me go back to, I will pull up another comment that was that we've got from somebody, and that is from Stacy. Stacy was on our budget, was like on the budget committee this time, and did really, really important work for us. And it's great when we have citizens who help us out and give of their time to try to go through the budgets with us. She made some really big contributions, and I appreciate the fact that coming out of that, she feels like she can support the budget. It's great to hear that as well. I don't know if anyone else wants to lay a little bit of compliments on Stacy. I think she's worthy of it.
Stacy did a great job finding. She kept needling the unemployment benefits in the budget, which ended up in saving us quite a bit of money when we went back and looked at it. So she was a strong and great member of the budget committee and has been supporting it throughout all these different meetings we've had, which is fantastic.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Stacey definitely did a good job. It's a super complicated budget to dig in and understand, and Stacey worked very hard and wasn't afraid to ask questions. So certainly anybody in the future joins in, don't be afraid to ask questions and help us get you familiar with the budget. And it was a job well done. So
it's not just us who's giving the shout outs. John Perry's on a shout out for Stacey too, which is great. It's just great. No, in this budget, even though we're in the midst of a situation where we have a surplus, we gave back about $1 million went into paying down some of what the tax rate might be. We still cut some positions this time around, at least partially. And I don't know if anyone wants to talk about that process at all and why we came to some of those decisions, even in a year where we have a surplus.
Yep, I'm unmuted, so I'll jump in, and then the others can as well. So we looked at the high school schedule, class enrollments, specifically at the high school, and came to the conclusion that we could make a reduction in staff, not eliminate any programs, but reduce class offerings and staff. And that's a half art position, a half music position, and a half PE position. And this also puts us in line with other high schools across the state and what they offer in the staffing that's available at those schools. Again, it's not an elimination of those programs, it's a reduction. And I think that's the most important thing to understand. It's a reduction and not elimination.
Yeah, the other thing is, if the enrollments increase, we're going to increase them again to full time. But it was based on enrollments. We have a declining enrollment at the high school, and the classes just didn't have the enrollments. The music teacher example, one music class, one BTLC class, and then he was teaching other things that weren't part of his endorsement. So for me, I just couldn't justify it to the taxpayers. But again, if the enrollments increase, we're going to put it back full time.
Zach, I want to speak to that topic in the context of a new question that came into our budget question. It's not posted there yet. It just came in, but we got to get it posted and we'll get an answer. But I'll verbally provide an answer. The question was, if enrollment is declining, how come our budget's not going down? And in reality, it is. Our expenditures are down about 0.5%. Some may not think that's large, but on a $32 million, 0.5% is a good chunk of change. And those teacher FTEs, reductions in FTEs, represents the board's reaction to that dropping enrollment. And I've been I've had this conversation across the state I don't know how many times over the years, but enrollment dropping and staff reductions are impossible to be one-to-one on a one-to-one basis, because you don't lose 25 kids out of the second grade class and you can eliminate a teacher. If you lose 25 kids, it's spread out over 12, 13 different grade levels. And when you get to the high school, there are different courses and stuff. So, your staff reductions are a step down. It's a stair type reduction. So, I think what you're seeing in this budget is a reaction to that decline in enrollment. I just want to say that because that is a new question that's been posted on our on our email, and we'll put that into hopefully some clearer language when we write the answer and get that posted as well.
I wanted to say that I I believe it is our responsibility to provide a quality education for all of our students, and I believe that that's what we are all trying to do every day, but with this budget. And I believe an important piece of that is the art, the music, and the PE. And I would never dream of cutting those topics from our class offerings, but it's also a real fine line and a balance, kind of what some of the others were saying. If we're not getting the participation in those classes, we can't be paying a teacher to not have a full class load. And certainly, I think down the road, if there are increased enrollments and a need to bring some or all of those from a half-time position back up to a full-time position, then I'll be the first one in line to say there's a need here and we need to fill it and we need to make this happen. But in today's current situation and environment, and when I say today, I just mean currently, not necessarily related to COVID in that comment, but just in our enrollments, this is the time to cut those down to half a time, at least for now.
Yeah, I think I characterized it as when we talked about this during the budget process. I talked about the pain as a person who, is an educational leader first. I don't like potentially pulling back any options from people, but it also has to be. I think I discussed it as the Shaw's test. Could I be in Shaw's and look somebody in the face who says, "Is it worth it? What you're doing with some of these positions? Can you justify to me this cost?" And if I couldn't look someone in the face and say, "Yes, it definitely is," then it's not something that we should be doing. And in this case, I just didn't feel that it passed the Shaw's test, despite the fact that I think a lot of boards would take the temptation of knowing that we have a surplus and saying, "Let's just kick the can down the road," because we could, we're in a more positive time as a result of a bad situation, which was COVID forcing us to shut down the schools towards the tail end of last year. So I'm going to mention again to folks that if you are watching, we have numbers of viewers coming in and tuning out and coming in, that if you're just starting to watch, you have the opportunity through this platform called StreamYard on Facebook to leave us comments, or on my YouTube page to leave us comments during this live stream in questions, and we're more than happy to respond to those questions and comments. So please don't hesitate. We've already had some people chime in, and I will give Stacy a thank you back to John Perry for the shout out that she got. But we're here to answer your questions if we can. Oh, here we go. Get a long one. From Dennis Clancy. Okay. When you say the money comes from the state, from where in the state treasury? I pay income taxes, so I'm paying twice for this budget. I understand gold towns, the lottery, etc., but the money just doesn't magically appear for Springfield. Does the state money go to repairs, maintenance, payroll, etc., or to program and studies? So I'll start, Mr. Clancy, first with just saying yes is the answer. It goes to all of those things. It's a general revenue stream. The state money goes that pays for basically all the different things that are in our budget. We have other revenue streams, but the money that comes when you pay into the state fund, it goes into a bucket, and then it comes back to us, your money, and then a bunch of money from other people in other communities come back to Springfield. I don't know, Rick, you could probably do a better job of summarizing this, because I know you did an answer to this in our frequently asked question document.
Yeah, and I have that. Do I have the ability to? Do
you want me to pull it? I can just pull it up for you if you want.
Do I have the ability to share, or you want to share, or
the frequently asked question page? I can do that. Yeah, give me just a minute.
because the answer is detailed in there.
I'll get it up for you, and then you can walk us through it.
So I wouldn't term it paying twice, because you're not paying $64 million. But yes, you are paying through your property taxes, and you are paying through other taxes. But as I say in that frequently asked questions, if hypothetically Springfield was even capable of cutting their budget in half, that doesn't mean the gas tax is going to be reduced, or the room and meals tax is going to be reduced, or you're still going to, buy the number of gallons that you buy, and that tax is going to go into the ed fund, and instead of coming to Springfield, it's going to go to some other community. So it. So I don't know if you want to put the question down, Zach, so it's easier to see.
Sure. Let me see if.
Can you grow that?
Let me see if I can zoom that out a little bit. Give me just a second.
So the question that was asked by Mr. Clancy was, relatively the same question that was asked here to us earlier, and our answer is here, as I was just explaining, that in addition to the property tax, 100% of the sales and use tax. So whenever you're buying, the pay sales and use on it in the state of Vermont, that goes into the ed fund. The lottery fund goes into the ed fund. 1/3 of the gas tax goes into the ed fund. 1/3 of the diesel tax goes in. 25% of room and meals go in. So, you're gonna. I assume. I guess I shouldn't be emphatic, but I don't think that if Springfield slashed their budget, you would buy less gas, or go out to eat less, or buy less products, and less sneakers or whatever in the store. You'll likely still have that same spending pattern, but those revenue pieces would stay in the ed fund and go to other communities instead of Springfield. So I know it's complicated, but I hope that helps in understanding where all of that other money comes from.
And as I said, this is one of those. Let me get this down. This is one of those questions we've dealt with over the years, because when people hear this, they're just convinced that there's a loophole. There's some sleight of hand that's involved in all this. So that's one group of people. And then the other group of people are saying, well, somebody somewhere is paying a tax to help facilitate this for Springfield to be able to do the spending in the schools. And that's true. And I think, you have to make a value judgment about how much is enough. And if you're able to provide services in your community for a fraction of the cost, that might change some of your analysis as to how much is too much. And I think if it's, I'll leave it at that. I think there's an opportunity to provide a core service for the kids in the community at a highly discounted rate compared to most communities in Vermont. But it's not magic, and we don't treat it like, and we know it's not magic. And I know, and that we're not trying to make it sound like as such. I think that it's just hard to get into the weeds as to why some of the things are the way they are in a way that people want to listen to.
And just to the tail end of his question there, Zach, and I know you answered it, but I just want to emphasize it, that other money that comes from the ed fund, it's not what the state would call categorically positioned. It just comes to us, and we use it broadly across the entire budget. There are other what are called categorical grants specifically for special education, specifically for transportation. Those do exist, but that's a separate pot of money that's not part of this.
I have another question from Jason Phelps. All right. So Jason says, the FY22 budget summary posted on the district website includes operating costs by the 4 schools and other departments. Proposed increases by school are Riverside 0.1, High School 0.9, Union 1.5, and Elm Hill 8.6. Please explain why the increase at Elm is significantly higher than the other schools.
And you're gonna stump me off the top of my head. I think the big reason for that is when we built last year's budget, and when we have to compare year to year, we were anticipating moving 5 teachers out of there to one of them to Union and one to Riverside. And so by this budget, we are recapturing those, and that's part of the reason why Riverside and Union are up so little, is because that's a reallocation of those 5 FTEs back into Elm Hill.
And you said teachers, Rick, but there's also paras that are involved in some of this conversation too.
Yeah.
There's several people, several paraprofessionals who we thought would be shifting who ultimately didn't shift.
Correct.
So it's all personnel costs, not necessarily the addition of positions as opposed to a lack of movement in some of those roles to other locations. Thanks for the question, Jason. And thanks, Mr. Clancy, for your question too. Let's see. We really appreciate people getting on and throwing stuff at us. We want to talk about it. All right. So while we got some time waiting for some more questions, any other thoughts around? I don't know, something else that Rick. What was another frequently asked question that we had some people reach out to us on that maybe we could talk about a little bit?
The other one was about the stabilization fund. We talked about it a little earlier. We can talk about it again.
It might be worthwhile just to talk a little bit about health insurance increases, which the school district has no control over anymore. So the health insurance is now bargained and negotiated at the state level and not the local level. So we have no control over those increases, and those were quite significant this year, somewhere around 14% or so, right, Rick?
Yeah, well, yeah. This year's increase is 14.9, I believe. Next year, which is in the budget that we're talking about, I think it's 13.5. So 2 back-to-back double-digit years. And yes, that the so-called consolidating that negotiation at the state level has not proved to save the money that somebody thought it was going to save.
Well, and it might have for some districts, but we had worked really hard over the last couple of years to come to our own settlements with our 2. We have 2 large employee unions. One is the Springfield Teachers Association, who deals with all of our staff that is licensed by the Agency of Education, and then the Springfield Schools Staff Association, who is the union for our everything from paraprofessionals to custodians, and we had negotiated our own healthcare agreements with both of those unions, and it was hard. We went through it was a really difficult thing to go through, but ultimately came to some agreements. But then the state came in and was, we're going to negotiate this from the state level and hopefully we'll get better deals. Well, I think they got better deals from some other districts who had given much more generous healthcare packages to people. than us, but now that we're tied in with them, we have to deal with the increased costs that came with not the best round of negotiations at the state level. It is healthcare. I mean, that is a killer cost for us. When people talk about, well, if why on an annual basis the costs go up, most of our costs in the school district are people. The vast majority of what we spend is on people. And while there are some, we do have some salary increases on an annual basis. The healthcare one is a really difficult one for us because it's not something we're doing by choice.
So the other two questions, again, we've talked about them, Zach, are the drop in enrollment and then the the property tax obligation compared to the town and income sensitivity.
Okay.
Zach, I could just say a little bit more about the stabilization fund.
Great.
So I am always, as long as we're able to meet our obligation in providing them a proper education, I'm always looking for ways to give money back to the taxpayer. And I really thought long and hard and questioned the stabilization fund option. And in the end, I decided that, in my opinion, it is the right thing to do, because if we don't do this and that money is applied to the budget, then everybody's taxes are going to go down a certain amount. But that doesn't mean we didn't spend that money. We just got extra money applied from a previous budget. So the year after, it's going to have to, again, they're going to have to go back up and pay that same amount because the expenses stayed constant and the same. So I know it's really hard to be used to paying a certain amount and then see a drop, and then all of a sudden a year later it goes right back up. Plus, I'm sure we'll have more healthcare increases and other increases, so it would go up even more. So when you're going up and down like that, it can be real hard for anybody to manage their expenses and their income versus their bills. And by having this fund, we can limit and minimize those swings for the taxpayers so that they see a more constant tax obligation instead of up and down, up and down. Because I know if I get extra money in my pocket, unfortunately, I'm never smart enough to put it all into savings. I find a way to spend it. And then when that changes, now I've got to figure out what can I cut to afford it. And I didn't want to see our taxpayers put in a situation a year from now, figuring out what can they cut because the taxes went back up to where they would have been this year if we didn't have all that money.
One other thing I want to mention was about tax rates and what people pay. So again, this is where the municipal side and the town and the school side are different, and people assume that they're the same. So if you're a property owner in Springfield, outside of a small group of people who are on a certain level of fixed income who get a break on both town and school taxes, most property tax owners are paying the full rate for the town side, which last year was the highest municipal tax rate in the state of Vermont. On the school side, we are not, we're not the bottom tier. We're not the cheapest rate in town. We're definitely in the top 20% for sure. But of that rate of property owners in town, based on the last data that I looked at, which is now a couple years old, but about a third of property owners in Springfield pay the full school rate. 2/3 do not. And so it's, again, another layer of complication that comes with the school side that is not as simple and as transparent as the municipal side, but again is a benefit to many people in town, but happens in a way that is not as transparent as it could be. So I got another question from John Perry. How will this budget affect teachers' compensation and benefits? So two things. One is there's a general answer to that, and then there's a more specific one. The specific one really depends on as we hire people, well, maybe generally this is the way to go. As we hire people, people are going to come in at different points on our salary scale and schedule coming into the next year. So that will have some impact. But and we are still we're still working through a final agreement with our Teachers Association. They're hoping to close up soon. But Rick, can you speak anything else you would feel comfortable saying in regards to the teachers' compensation and benefits in this particular budget?
I would just say that the budget seldom drives the compensation package. It's really the other way around. The compensation package more likely drives the budget. I wouldn't want to speak to, there's a tentative agreement. It's not public yet, so we can't talk about what the settlement is or what we think it's going to be. But I think we can honestly say for the last couple of years, the teachers have recognized the economic conditions in Springfield, and I don't have the numbers right off the top of my head, but Mike probably does, because I think he usually lives them, quite often. But I think the last couple of years they were, 1.8%, 2% area in salaries, and we don't have a whole lot of choice in the benefit side. Although I will tell you that healthcare, which is the biggest chunk of that, a family plan, is costing us somewhere around $26,000 a year. It's almost as much as a starting salary for a new teacher out of school. But and the premium split on that is the district pays 80%, and the teachers union and the support staff. Support staff pay 19%. Teachers pay 20%. So I'm hoping that kind of answers it for you, John. But it's I think they've been responsible collective bargaining contracts over the last couple of years, and the new one will be coming out shortly.
So, Rick, I'm going to throw another stumpy question at you. I'm going to take the easy part, and then hope that you can do the part that I can't quickly answer. So this is from Sue Phelps, Dana. What is the total per pupil spending, and how does it compare to other districts across the state? So I think similar to what we were saying before about being in the top 20% of tax rates, the tax rates correspond with the per pupil spending. So we're going to be similar in that we're in that top 20%. Compared to other places. And Rick, do you have our estimated per pupil number? I was just looking for this.
18,324, and I have not seen the state average for this year yet, but it is somewhere in the neighborhood of $17,000.
Gotcha. Great, thank you. All right, I got a Park Street question from Jason Phillips. With the change from building owner to now being a tenant at Park Street, how much is the district saving annually from this change?
We are roughly saving about $40,000 a year, and it's not a clean one-for-one calculation. But our operating cost this year, so our lease, for all practical purposes, basically says that we will still heat the building and pay for the lights in the building, but SRDC, for the space that they lease to Brick, and it's a complicated alphabet soup. They are paying us back 6.5% of those operating costs. So, in all practical purposes, we are saving 6.5% of the operating cost, roughly about $40,000. And we've also, with the exception of plowing the property, our maintenance of the property is basically nil. We pay, we pay a $600 repair. Anything over $600, SDRC has to pay.
Yeah. So in addition to the savings and some of the operating costs, it's the big one for us is that we're not. If there are major issues at park, we're no longer responsible. The taxpayers are no longer responsible for covering those major issues, and we have some deferral of the operating expense. So that's where we're at the moment. I think that will continue to evolve over time, but that's the arrangement we have at the moment.
Well, and that's a good point, Zach. And Zach probably recalls, but and we knew, and everyone on this, well, all the board members on this call knew that we were keeping the boilers together with bubble gum and Band-Aids and rubber bands. And this last summer and fall, SRDC did a major overhaul of one of those boilers. I don't know for sure, but I bet it was in excess of $50,000. And that's a check we did not have to write. Well,
and more importantly, I think for us, I mean, we go back many years ago when we were first exploring. Well, it was way back, but if we go back 5-6 years ago, and when Ed Karen was board chair, there was a real heavy look at us departing Park Street, and the impetus for that was those boilers could go at any minute, and we don't want to be in the middle of January and having to jump off and try to find someplace else to be. And so we've been able to take care of that issue. We're still in a situation where we can, if we need to depart, we will depart. But at the moment, we've got as good a deal as we're going to get anywhere else in town in terms of what our needs are. So we'll continue to do that for the time being. Like I said, that continues to be reevaluated as we go. And as SRDC's needs with the building change, our relationship with them will probably change as well. All right, 52 and a half minutes in. Thank you, everybody who's been sending us questions. Thank you so much. I might have us hang in there for another couple minutes for another question or so. And then
I just wonder why I didn't get a kudos, Zach, for having that per pupil number on the tip of my tongue.
I'm sorry. You were not appropriately patted on the back. It's me giving you the pat on the back for having that ready to roll. So, all right. So maybe then just have some any closing things that people would like to pass on before we hit the road for today.
I'll jump in with one, Zach. I feel like with the COVID situation that all our citizens are currently dealing with, and looking ahead into the future, and hoping to see a full in-person rebound for our students, there's going to be a lot of catch up and a lot of hard work to be done to get our kids back on track. And a successful budget vote is very important to our ability and making all of that happen very swiftly. And I ask the voters, especially this year, please do support our budget so that we can not have to make further reductions or cuts that's going to slow that rebound.
I'll say one thing with that, and then I might go back to another question, and then we'll get back to some people wrapping up. The timing, the first vote going through is crucial for us in terms of operation, because when we don't go through in the first vote, we miss a big hiring window for people, and we miss it because very often we have to slow walk what we're doing, so we're not sure if additional cuts are going to be made. And we miss out on some of the really prime candidates to fill teaching positions in the district. So it's and it makes it really hard for us to plan. And we're moving into a period of time, like you said, Mike, where we have to do a lot of planning around the summer. in the fall to try to think carefully about what's been happening for kids during that period of time and quickly get us back to where we want students to be. So, all right, Rick, I got another stumpy question. Jason is great for staying on the details, which is great. And so maybe we can get this one, and if not, I'm sure we can get back to Jason on it. What are the annual Park Street plant costs for rent for heat?
So I'm actually pulling it up as I speak. I have a rough idea off my head, but I should be able to pull this up relatively quickly if my computer works well. Rent is $1, so that's that's the lease agreement we have. We pay $1. We don't pay any rental space, but as I said before, we just pay 93.5% of the oil and electricity, and I have that, I hope. Hang on. So,
I'll give you a few minutes if you need, Rick.
yeah, why don't you
So I'll just say I got one other plug. Stacy, just letting people know that that she would encourage them to consider being part of the budget committee advisory committee next year, and that she learned a lot and thinks that a great job was done by all in this budget. I will say that what people can anticipate is my hope is that now that we're out of COVID, well, we're not out of COVID, but my hope is we're going to be out of COVID as we get into the fall, or we're going to be a lot less affected by COVID. Is that our budget process will be looking for people to be part of budget committees in the fall, so that we can do some not just as we throw out the proposal, but before even the proposal, we spend some time with people. If you don't know anything about school budgets, our goal is to try to educate you about how does a school budget work, how does money come in, what are the different types of accounts we have, answer all those questions before you even get the proposal, so that you feel like you're in a strong position to be part of kind of a judgment process about the particular proposal that we're putting forward. So, so if you're thinking about it, and for a couple of years you've been thinking, oh, I really think I want to do that, then I'd encourage you to be ready, probably sometime in October, to throw your name in there, or maybe come out to those initial meetings where we're starting to do some of that kind of reorientation process to how the budget's set up and what it looks like, and we'd love to have you then, so that as we get into December and January, the teeth of the budget season, you already got a pretty firm foundation. You feel pretty comfortable about your knowledge about how this stuff works. So, all right, Rick, you got that number or no?
I'm close. I'm
Dance a little. I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna go back to these guys then.
Dance a little longer.
Troy, any last thoughts for folks?
Sure. I just encourage people to come out and vote, whether you're going to vote yes or no for the budget. It's important to come out and have your voice heard. It's the worst thing to not have voted and then be disappointed in the outcome of something. I believe this budget to be fair. Like Mike said and Zach said, there's a lot of catch up to do for students. For parents like myself and my kids, I know there's going to be catch up to do in the fall when everybody gets back in the building, fingers crossed, when we're through COVID. And we need the staff ready and raring to go for that catch up, so we can move Springfield to where we want to be as a school district across the state, and passing a budget is a huge part of that. So just encourage people to come out and vote one way or the other, because those numbers, whether it passes or goes down by a lot, tells us what the board needs to know about decisions that need to be made in the next budget season.
Before I go to Steve, I'll just say Jason gave the thank you for this session. He's given the thank you while we still haven't given him the Park Street number yet, Rick. So I'm feeling that's pretty generous on Jason's part. So all right, I'm going to go to Steve. Steve, any kind of closing thoughts from you on this process?
Yeah, I want people to know that I do too support this budget, and it's going to hurt if it goes down. And right now, due to the pandemic, we can't afford to go through a negative type of situation with our staff or the teachers. So I strongly encourage people to come and vote. And like Troy said, vote either way, but just come out and vote, please.
All right, Rick, I'm coming back to you for one last chance.
What about Mike?
Oh no, Mike was already, but I can come back to Mike for a second concluding statement if you need more time.
So no, I'm good. So our oil cost is budgeted to be about $94,000 next year, and our electricity cost is budgeted to be about $20,000 next year.
Great. All right. So the last thing I just say is similar to just echo what other people said. Definitely. I hope everybody just votes. Whatever you're going to do, up, down, whatever. The sign of a thriving civic community is to have people turn out and letting their voices be heard, and that's super important. And so we hope you do. If you absentee ballots are already out there, and so if you're there's the ability to do that soon, and there's the public information session. That's the formal, official public information session that'll be on Monday night. If you look to the town website, and we'll have some more information on our website soon about that. It's going to be virtual this year, no in-person stuff because of the concerns around COVID. But there will be, an opportunity to hear another presentation from us, from the town, from various organizations who are requesting money from the taxpayers. An opportunity to ask some questions. That'll all be the case. And then, of course, if you want to vote in person, Tuesday, March 2nd, this upcoming Tuesday, is the day to vote in person. So we hope you get out there and you vote, no matter which one you do. And in the meantime, if you still have questions, if you were on this live feed and you didn't have some questions answered, and right after you walk away, you're like, oh, shoot, I wish I'd asked this. Send us emails to that budget question, no space, no anything, all together, budget question at ssddt.org. And we will answer those questions back to you personally. And if it's a common question, we'll put it up on our frequently asked question page on our website as well. And over the next couple of days, we'll continue to try to put out additional information that might help people in the community get a handle on what it is that's in the school budget. So I think that's all we've got. So I really appreciate all the board members who came out, and Rick, our CFO, for spending some time. And I really appreciate everybody who took the time on a Thursday night to engage us a little bit around this stuff. So thank you, Springfield, very much. I hope everybody has a great night.
Have a good
Thank you
night.
all.